Hello guitar players, today I'm bringing the topic of scallop fretboards. I've seen many forums and many people talking about them, and I had a few on my own. I played a few, and I feel it would be interesting to make a video addressing the main concerns of those considering buying one or having their neck their fretboard being scalloped. So without further ado, let me start getting you a few answers. The first one is what is it that it is? Okay, so a fretboard and scallop fretboard, if you imagine this being the top of your fingerboard and on top of it there's the strings, what it does is between the frets, let's say that there's two frets, they carve this space in between so that it's deeper. And there's like two main versions of scallop fretboards. The ones that are partial, meaning that they are usually from fret 12 to 24, something like that, or a little higher even, or the ones that are fully scalloped, like every single fret over the fretboard is scalloped, like for instance Yngwie Malmsteen's Stratocaster signature Strat. Now, you may be wondering, what is that exactly for? Because Yngwie and Steve Vai did it to their guitars, many think that the scallop thing has something to do with speed. That's not really the case. A scallop fingerboard is not really gonna get you any faster or any more technical or anything like that. It's gonna change a little bit of the feel of the guitar, but that's all it's gonna do. I'll go through the different things, through the different effects that it's gonna have. But the main one that we wanna talk about is bending. So I'll try to demonstrate this the best I can. So let's say that again, this is your fretboard, right? And this is one of your strings. And you wanna bend the string, right? And the string, as guitar players, we try to get the lowest possible action, right? Meaning that the strings are as close as possible to the fretboard so that they are very easy to play. So let's say that we get it something like this, right? And then we try to bend, and our contact comes with the lower part of our finger, right? So what happens if we scalloped it? Then, even though the distance is the same, we have a little bit of a hole here, and our finger can dig deeper and maybe get the string right in the middle. So in other words, it changes the feel, because if this is the string, and normally you can only reach this much of it to engage your bending, to get a grip. Now, instead of here, because there's a hole, an actual hole in the fretboard, then you get something like this. So it's much easier to get the string and pull. Now you may be wondering, or you should be wondering, do I need this? Do I struggle getting a grip on the string when I'm pulling it, when I'm bending it? If the answer is no, chances are you don't really need this. Now this is going to be just my very personal opinion. What kind of people need this? I think if you have larger fingers, chances are you're going to struggle more getting the string, because for an average size finger like mine, if I can get the string like this, if my finger was larger, it would be like this, right? So if you have large hands and large fingers, you may want to benefit from it. If you had average hands and average fingers, in my humble opinion, you will not really get much of the benefit of it. However, you may like the way it feels, and it might be for you, but I'm just talking general terms, whom I think could benefit the most out of it. Let me see, next point, chords. I've seen, and I've been asked, because I used to have the Yngwie model. Is that changed the way you play the chords or anything? No, it really feels the same. I did not notice anything different. I did not struggle. Some people say it goes out of tune because you press. Not really. because when you're pressing your strings down, you don't really push so much so that you reach the wood in your regular guitar. So you're not gonna keep pulling or pushing in a scalloped guitar. The feel is gonna remain basically the same. So not change when you're playing chords. At least I did not feel any. The next one is we cover speed. Tune. Does it help or does it go against you when you're trying to play in tune? Same thing, it really has no effect. Not at all, unless you're used, and this is an extreme example, unless you're used to pushing your strings so much so that you reach the wood part of your fingerboard, unless you're used to that as a reference point, in which case, of course, you will have none because there's gonna be a gap there, but that's not a very good way, that's not very good technique. If you're not one of those guys, then it's not gonna change at all. There's something that I perceived. This is just a matter of perception, but it seems very consistent among those who switch to fingerboards with the scalloped being made. It feels like your action is much higher than it used to be before. Even though it is not, it's the same. But when you're looking at your strings and the frets, the distance between the fret and the string is the same, but then you see the gap, and it kind of tricks your mind a little bit into thinking that the action is like super high when it's not. When you're playing, this feel disappears. It's just a visual thing, but it does feel like the action is much higher than it really is, until, of course, you measure it against the fret and not against the board. Let me see. Playing with gain, playing with clean. I've heard this myth again that it makes your articulation more accurate. That is not really the case. Your articulation is going to remain exactly the same as it was before. And again, the only benefit that it really has, or I guess the one it was intended to have, is being able to bend more comfortably. Now there's something interesting, something that got my attention, which is that, like I mentioned before, there's two types of fretboards, mainstream fretboards that you get scalloped. The one where you have the whole fretboard, every single fret is being scalloped, and the one in which only the last few have been scalloped. That's interesting, because if you like, for instance, playing the blues and you play in A, right? Then that means that you're going to be doing some good bendings in the first few frets of your fretboard, which are paradoxically the more difficult ones to get a grip on because the strings are much closer, right? If you think about your fretboard and this is the nut, right? And this is the body, it kind of goes like, the strings go like this a little bit. So at the beginning of the fretboard, it's more difficult to get your finger around and get some bending. And around the fret number 12-ish is when it's the easiest. However, most guitars with an scallop have the scallop there, which makes me think, and this is just me mumbling, that probably the typical guitar player who buys this type of guitar bends mainly on this area of the fretboard. But I do all over the fretboard, so if I were to pick one, if you like I said, I play pretty much everything, but I like playing the blues a lot too. And I bend a lot in the first section of the fretboard, the first 5 frets. I do it all over the place, but I get a lot of workout there too. And I found that very beneficial to my playing because it was really easy to do. But still, I have just average hands, so I see how that was a little bit more comfortable at times, but for the majority of my playing, I did not really find a need for me to have it. But if you struggle just grabbing strings there, I would encourage you to try one, because it really makes a big difference for some guys. I have a couple friends, and again, same pattern. They have large hands, large fingers, and they say, man, just getting to grab the string is difficult, and it takes like a lot of effort. But when I play in a scalloped one, it's super easy, because your finger goes underneath the actual, fretboard, and you can really grab it there. Let me see, just in case this was not graphical enough. I don't know how this is going to work out, but if you see the fingerboard, right, you see that this is completely flat. So what you get is a little bit of a indentation here. So they remove part of the wood here, so that your finger can really get a grasp there. So that's why I was mentioning that having large fingers might or might not be the main reason why you want one of these. A different one would be just that you like it for the hell of it, which is totally cool too. That's actually the reason why I got mine in the first place, because of Envy and all these guys, and I was really, really curious to see what it had to offer. And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. It did not do what I expected it would, and that's why I'm creating this video, so that maybe I can share my experience to those who may be expecting something that is not gonna be it. But I still liked it. The only thing that I did not like, and the reason why I prefer a guitar with no scallop frets, it's I really like the warm feel of having the whole fretboard underneath my fingers. I don't know, I wouldn't be able to tell you whether that's a real physical feel or more of a psychological thing, but I really enjoy feeling the neck underneath. And I felt sometimes that playing with a scallop played a little bit like you played in the middle of thin air. Not meaning that's a bad thing. Actually, I know a few folks who love that, because they feel like they have this freedom. But I like the woody feel of grabbing a big chunk of wood and making it sound and all that fun stuff. So that was my video on scallop fretboards. Hope you liked it. If you liked it, please leave a like, and if you're interested in more of this type of videos playing, or do you have any questions, you're welcome to contact me, or to subscribe. So I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.